During a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, somebody plows an SUV through the marching band and appears to be running back and forth in order to try and get as many victims as possible. So we are going to talk extensively about that, most likely, here. I've only got a couple articles, but we are still going to talk quite a bit about it. In other news, the Rittenhouse verdict has been handed down. The marches have started, and we have got a lot to talk about with that, including what happened with GoFundMe and some of the marches that have happened across the country versus what happened here in Wisconsin. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Another NBC writer comes out and tells us that we have no right to tell our school boards what it is that we want them to teach. So we'll talk just a bit about that. And thieves steal from several high-end stores across the Bay Area. Hey, as long as it's under $1,000 a person, I don't see the problem. It is going to be all this and more. Let's go, Brandon. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, what a weekend. Capped off by something else that ironically happened elsewhere in southeast Wisconsin. I don't know what the fuck is in the water in southeast Wisconsin all of a sudden. Even Wisconsin in general, where this is the front and center of every news story, because Waukesha is probably 40 to 50 miles, depending on how you drive, away from Kenosha. So, I mean, it's not like we're driving hours upon hours upon hours and upon hours to get across the state to find something else happen in Wisconsin. No, this is right around the corner from what's happening in Kenosha here. So we're going to talk about that, plus the Rittenhouse thing, plus, everything else that we have going on here. We got a long one here today, but I think I can do a quick hit on some of these stories just because it's just kind of a review of where the riots did happen versus where they didn't happen. So we'll talk about that. It's going to be all this and more. And we'll finish it out because it's a Monday over here on Contemporary. But before we get started, guys, do make sure you guys go over and check out TurnSomePagesProductions.com, the new website that we are in the process of funding to try and get designed so that we can get all of our great Turn Some Pages content producers into one place. We will carry great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Already Conservative, The Porch Boys, and The Freckles and Brit Show. So head on over there, bookmark the start page. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have some good writers, although it looks like I may have lost one of my good writers. He may have been hired somewhere else, which is fine. He's got to get paid. I'm not going to be in a position to start paying for articles when this all starts here, but he's got to get paid. He's got to take care of his own. So I harbor no ill will towards him, but we're going to have a lot of great content onto this website. We just need to get it all funded. No GoFundMe link today. I'm going to explain why when we get into the Rittenhouse stuff here, but it is still active. And I am wrestling with myself right now as to whether or not I can take the funds that are out of it. I've not set up the withdrawals yet, so I've not taken a single fund out of it, but I am wrestling with myself as to whether or not this will be proper, given what we see coming out of the Rittenhouse thing. So, those of you who have donated, you might see a refund coming up here in the very near future. It's not because I don't want your money, I do, and I appreciate the fact that you guys want to invest in the company. I just don't want to continue a relationship with GoFundMe and let them get the fees for what we're seeing off of this. But we'll put a poll to the chat about this when we talk about this, and we'll see what happens. And we'll put a poll on Twitter too later on too. So definitely go get that in and vote it for, and we might have to go find another crowdfunding way to do this. All right, but let's get into the finance of the morning here. Drop this just a little bit more. Let's get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are saying. Make sure that nobody's killing each other in the live chat. I think there's just a couple people in here fumbling in, which is why we do finance. Part of the reason we do finance in the morning, because that gives everybody a chance to shuffle in here. Looking in at the Dow dropped again over the weekend, on Friday especially, dropping down like a rock at the beginning and then holding steady throughout the rest of the day. It tried climbing again, but it dropped once again throughout the rest of the day. Close was at 35,601.98, which means that over the course of a week, the Dow dropped 1,000 points. You know, where everyone was bragging, hey, we hit 36,000 on the Dow, and then they passed the infrastructure bill, and then it just dropped back off again. You know, that infrastructure bill that was supposed to save everything. And we'll be talking, I don't even have news on the infrastructure bill, I don't think. No, I don't. Shit, because we're supposed to be doing that too. But I guess we'll get caught up today and we'll see what else went on with this. All right. Looking in at your Bitcoin with the new riders that are on the infrastructure bill, the Bitcoin is dropping like a stone along with every other crypto. 56,681.10. With people knowing that they're going to get taxed out the ass if they actually make anything off of Bitcoin. So that's what we see off of that. Another 3%. Across the last day. Your industrials. See, this whole sign up for price alerts thing just stopped up here, and now we can't go back and see what else we have up here. I don't want to subscribe. I just want your advertisement out of my way. There it goes. Alright, your copper is up over the weekend. Your steel is up over the weekend. And on the average, your aluminum is down. Looking in at your copper plays. Thin wire is down and Romex is down, but looks like all other copper plays are up right now. Steel BX is down, light iron is up, most of your irons are up, but stainless steel is also on the downswing. On aluminum, siding is down, aluminum copper pin radiator is up, regular aluminum radiator is up, cans are up, cans are down, sheet aluminum is down, rims are down. On your other plays, motors, ballasts, motors are down, ballasts are up, lead is up, batteries are coming back up at this point because it looks like they need the lead. All your catalytic converters continue to rise, so if you got that old junk car, slice that catalytic converter off of there and bring that in because they're looking for them. They need that material to make new cats and make new cars because they're getting ready to get off of the chip shortage and get into full swing. Compressors are up, alternators are down. Carbide is down, and your computer plays are all up. Hard drives, motherboards, and power supplies are all up. So if you've got some stuff to recycle, now would be the time to look into it and see where it goes. All right, let's see what IBD has to say for the day. I said, let's see what IBD has to say for the day. Dow futures rise. Biden set to pick Fed chief as market rally diverges. Tesla rises, Rivian falls. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose modestly Monday morning, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. The stock market rally diverged last week, with Apple and other mega-cap stocks thriving, which masked some underlying weakness. That comes as President Biden is about to announce whether he will nominate Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell for a second term, with inflation at a 30-year high. Finally, Rivian is consolidating after the initial post-Rivian IPO surge. Is it time to buy this EV startup? This is not official financial advice, but I'm considering it. I think this is going to go places, but there again, not official financial advice. Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Nvidia, and Microsoft drove the NASDAQ composite to record highs. The NASDAQ, and especially the NASDAQ 100, are looking extended, but the NASDAQ advanced decline has been weakening. Meanwhile, the Dow Jones and Russell 2000 fell last week as tumbling oil prices and treasury yields hit energy stocks and financials. Blame renewed, COVID fears and restrictions, which are also hitting travel names. That'll be interesting, and it'll be interesting definitely to see if the gas starts to come down or not. Will Biden nominate Fed Chief Jerome Powell for a second term? President Biden on Tuesday suggested he would announce his Federal Reserve Chair nomination in about 4 days, though a White House official later said a decision would come before Thanksgiving. Biden is set to leave for a holiday trip on Tuesday. Will Biden stick with Fed Chief Powell or go with someone else, such as Fed Governor Lael Brainerd? Stock and bond markets appear to favor Powell, whose current term as Fed chairman ends in February 2022. Fed Chief Powell is a known quantity and gets high marks on Wall Street for his swift action during the coronavirus crash. Now, the Fed is starting to scale back asset purchases, with inflation hitting a 30-year high of 6.2% in October. There is speculation that policymakers could step up the pace of the Fed taper, perhaps as soon as the December meeting, but resurgent COVID cases could derail economic growth once again. This is a delicate time. Many observers believe that, at least on monetary policy, Fed Governor Brainerd would be quite similar to Powell, but there's always the unknown, and it's not just policy. Communicating to financial markets is a key role for the Federal Reserve Chair, explaining not only what the central bank is doing now, but what it may do as economic trends develop. Powell had some rocky moments on policy and communication early on, but has grown more deft in his press conferences. Part of that also reflects analysis and investors learning how to interpret Powell's statements. One key factor in favor of Powell is that many GOP senators would likely support a second term. President Trump picked Powell. Another choice, such as Brainerd, might struggle to get confirmation. Dem senators are split on Powell, with 3 urging Biden to pick someone else. Tesla, Microsoft, and Nvidia are on the IBD leaderboard. Apple stock is on Swing Trader. Microsoft is an IBD long-term leader. Tesla and Nvidia are on the IBD 50. On your futures, Dow futures rose 0.3% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures climbed 0.3%, and NASDAQ 100 futures advanced 0.4%. The 10-year Treasury yield rose 4 basis points to 1.58%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes, especially with the holidays coming up, to see if the crashing oil prices are some sort of policy, are something that's because we opened up the emergency reserves, or if this is just the fact that people are starting to stay in a little bit because they're realizing that gas is out the fucking ceiling. And I'm curious to see where this goes too, especially coming heating season. Like, I have not turned the gas heat on this year. I haven't. Because I look at this and I say, no, there's no way to do this. There is no way whatsoever to justify turning the heat on. And I mean, it's been down pretty chilly throughout some of the nights here. And I woke up today, it was pretty chilly when I got up and started walking around. I think it's part of the reason I had such a hard time dragging myself out of bed. But for 5 days of heat last month, it doubled the electric bill because the oil prices were so goddamn high. I'm sorry, not last year, last month. It doubled the electric bill last month. I was not ready to see a number like that for 5 days. So I'm looking at alternative options, but if the prices are going to actually come back down, it may become feasible to do so. We will see what happens with that. We will continue to watch that. Let's grab one from DFX. Markets week ahead: Dow Jones, US dollar, crude oil, NZD, USD, RBNZ, Fed nomination, from Daniel Dubrovsky. Global market sentiment ended on a fairly mixed note this past week. Taking a look at Wall Street, the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 climbed about 2.3%, outperforming the cyclically sensitive Dow Jones, which sank roughly 1.3%. The S&P 500 was caught in the middle, rising 0.42%. In Europe, the FTSE 100 declined 1.69%, as the DAX 40 gained 0.41%. The Asia-Pacific region, Japan's Nikkei 225 gained 0.46%, as Australia's ASX 200 fell 0.62%. Lockdown woes resurfaced towards the end of the week in Europe. Austria announced a nationwide lockdown, with Germany leaving the door open to one amid a resurgence in the pinko-fucking-pox cases. A combination of European coronavirus woes and inflationary concerns in the U.S. helped push the U.S. dollar higher. This might have explained the rotation trade into tech stocks. Growth-linked crude oil prices dipped, with the WTI falling to its lowest since early October. The U.S. is headed for the Thanksgiving holiday, where stock and bond markets will be closed on the 25th. This will create illiquid trading conditions, opening the door for volatility given sudden news or economic data releases. President Biden is also expected to announce the next Fed chair before Thanksgiving, while Jerome Powell is expected to keep his role. Odds of a Lael Brainerd nomination have been rising. The markets are estimating the nomination to be relatively more dovish. Still, the next chair will have to face rising uncertainty about where inflation is going in the world's largest economy. Core PCE, which is the central bank's preferred inflationary metric, will cross the wires. This is on top of the GDP, durable goods, and University of Michigan sentiment data. FOMC minutes are also on tap. All things considered, it is shaping up to be a busy week in the U.S. Markets will continue watching coronavirus cases in Europe to see if further lockdowns and restrictions could unfold, threatening growth outlook estimates. Meanwhile, NZD-USD will be closely eyeing the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, which is expected to deliver a rate hike this week. While that is priced in, markets will be gauging prospects of further tightening from the RBNZ in 2022. What else is in store for the markets in the week ahead? A lot of stuff. That's what's in store for this, and we'll see where this goes. What the IPOs do. Looks like we don't have Leibt chat. I don't know what's going on with that. Looks like everything else is showing up in the Leibt chat, but it may not be coming. That's interesting. So Leibt is not sending, but it is receiving chat. So we'll use the Leibt as the monitor today rather than the Twitch like I usually do. Alright, but with that, we're going to get into the big news of the day, which is not the Rittenhouse case. Surprisingly enough, something in Wisconsin, and of course it had to be in Wisconsin, took precedent. And we are going to start with video from the Daily Wire, because they have the video. Warning, videos may be disturbing for some viewers. Alright, let's start with this one here. A viewer sent in a horrifying video the moment a red SUV plowed through a crowd during the Waukesha holiday parade. It is currently unclear how many people have been injured. Updates to come on TMJ4. Wow. Once more, for those at home, once again, may be disturbing for some viewers. Now, as of right now, no names being released off of this. There's some other video and some other pictures that go with this, but definitely no names are being released. There's some speculation that this is truck of peace in Waukesha. I don't know what happened with this. They found the vehicle. I don't know if they've got the guy. We'll talk about that when we move on to some of the main articles. There are reports of mass casualty event in Waukesha. Looks like the red SUV drove through a crowd during the Waukesha holiday parade earlier today. This video of event was live streamed on the city's Facebook page. This was right on their Facebook page too. I'm sure Zuckerberg was definitely not too thrilled about this. Yeah. We are on the scene now. One man says most of his family are in the hospital and his wife walked away. There are emergency crews everywhere. From Box 6 Now. Is this the same video that we just saw? 41 seconds? 16 seconds? Yeah. Just flying by, too. It's like the old Garth Brooks song. He never hit the brakes and he was shifting gears. And look at all those red lights. I know where that is, too. One man told me he saw about 30 people laying in the intersection of Main and Barstow. Law enforcement are about to close down Main Street. Yeah, I'm sure that they are. The Waukesha Sheriff's Office Incident Command Post is on the site. There are bag chairs and handfuls of candy stranded all along Main Street. Another man told us he heard a handful of shots and ran for cover. He was almost hit by the SUV as it pulled through. Yeah, there's more going on. And that's the SUV right there. Photos appear to show the red SUV involved in the Waukesha Holiday Parade incident. Follow updates here. First comment, was the people caught? Well, considering they're sitting outside the looks like a garage where the guy parked, with this posting or facing forward, I don't know, it tells me that the guy was actually probably proud of what the fuck he did. How'd they find the SUV so fast? I don't know, they found one that looked like that. So it is. I can't even begin to tell you what this says to me. Ron Helton is saying it was already they've already caught the guy. It was a guy with big dreadlocks and everything else that goes along with that. There's more to it than just the one guy. So I hope they find the other person, because if there were indeed gunshots that went along with that, as were reported by Sam Kramer here, handful of shots and ran for cover. He was almost hit by the SUV as it pulled through. This is just horrifying to see. All right, let's read from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. A person plowed their SUV through the Waukesha Christmas parade, and more than 20 people are injured, with some fatalities, authorities say. From Bill Glover, Mary Spicuzza, and Molly Beck. A treasured rite of the holiday season turned into a scene of bloody, deadly mayhem late Sunday afternoon as a vehicle plowed into the Waukesha Christmas parade, killing some and leaving more than 20 people injured, authorities said. There were some fatalities, but a figure was not released as authorities sought to notify families. 11 adults and 12 children were ferried to local hospitals. Others were taken by friends and family. Children's said it had 15 patients with no fatalities. Given where they were, I'm not surprised that Children's probably took the brunt of it because it was the closest hospital. And I'm sure there were a lot of kids in the crowd too, but if my Waukesha geography serves me correctly, Children's would have been the closest hospital to where this happened. It's been a while since I've been through Waukesha, but if my geography serves me correctly, yeah, that's going to be the closest. Waukesha Mayor Sean Riley called the incident a horrible and senseless act. Waukesha Police Chief Dan Thompson said at around 4:39 p.m. a red SUV broke through the parade barriers and headed west onto Main Street. The vehicle struck more than 20 individuals. Some of the individuals were children, and there were some fatalities as a result of the incident, he said. Let me see. Looks like they're trying to throw something in the Discord here. No, I haven't seen an article yet, Ron. A suspect vehicle was recovered and a person of interest was in custody, the police chief said. People were transported to hospitals via ambulances and police vehicles, he added. Very tragic incident. Very chaotic, Thompson said. Thompson said during the incident that an officer discharged his weapon at the suspect vehicle, trying to stop the vehicle. No bystanders were injured as a result of the weapon's discharge. Well, that's good because... Yes, I understand that there's a car going through the barriers, speeding up, going into a parade route. But shooting your gun into a crowd is never a good idea. The incident occurred during one of the city's biggest and most cherished annual events. A joyous crowd lined both sides of the road, people bundled against the cold. It wasn't that cold yesterday either. One video showed the red SUV on the parade route, veering towards the street and pulling behind the Waukesha South High School Black Shirt Band. Corey Montijo, a school district of Waukesha board member, was by Mainstream Bar and Grill when he heard that his daughter's youth dance team was hit. There were pom-pom... Oh my god, I can't believe I'm about to read this. There were pom-poms and shoes spilled, hot chocolate everywhere, he said. I had to go from one crumpled body to the other to find my daughter. My wife and 2 daughters were almost hit. Please pray for everybody. One body to the next. How do you get that out of your mind afterwards? I mean, yes, you've got the thanks in your heart that it wasn't your child, but you've touched one body after the next of deceased people on something this senseless. That's going to live with this dude forever. Please pray for everybody. Please pray. My family is safe, but many are not. I held one little girl's head in my hand. She was seizing and she was bleeding out of her ears. I held her mother as she collapsed. Please pray. In a Facebook post, the Waukesha Extreme Dance Team thanked those who checked on the safety of team members with their families. Video and witnesses on social media appear to show the Milwaukee dancing grannies being struck by the vehicle. Members range in age from their early 50s to mid-70s. The only requirement is that members must be grandmothers themselves, the website says. Members of the group and volunteers were impacted, and we are waiting for a word on the conditions, said a Facebook post from the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. Please keep the grannies and all those injured and all those who witnessed the horrible event in your thoughts and prayers. The Catholic community of Waukesha confirmed on Facebook that several parishioners were injured and were hospitalized. The Archdiocese of Milwaukee said some of those injured, or one of those injured rather, was a Catholic priest, as well as multiple parishioners in the Waukesha Catholic School children. Angelito Tenorio, a West Allis alderman who is running for Wisconsin State Treasurer, said he had just finished marching in the parade with his family and friends and was walking back towards Main Street. As we were walking back between the buildings, we saw an SUV cross over, just put the pedal to the metal, and zooming full speed along the parade route, and we heard a loud bang and deafening cries and screams from people who were struck by the vehicle, Tenorio said. And then, when we saw people running away or stopping, crying, and there were people on the ground who looked like they'd been hit by the vehicle. He added, it all just happened so fast. Videos posted to social media, including a live feed of the parade operated by the city of Waukesha, show a red SUV breaking through barriers and speeding into the roadway where the parade was taking place. In the city's footage taken from a distance, the SUV speeds into the parade just behind a school marching band. A reporter at the scene along West Main said the red SUV came barreling down the street and the crowd could hear the thuds. Oh my god. As it struck people, leaving many on the ground. Yeah. I don't even know what to say about this right now. This is... I want to know why. Why somebody would do something like this. This is beyond. This is just beyond. I don't know what to say about this. I really don't. I'm out of words. But that's what we see coming off of that. From WISN. Live updates, at least 29 injured, some killed as SUV drives in a holiday parade. At least 29 people have been injured when a driver plowed through a police barricade and into the Waukesha Christmas parade. A mass casualty incident has been declared in downtown Waukesha. Police said some victims were killed, but have not said how many. At 7:05 p.m., police sent an emergency alert telling anyone within a half-mile radius of the 5 Points downtown area to shelter in place and wait for an all clear. They said it was put in place as officers collected evidence. It has since been lifted. Roads into downtown are expected to be closed until at least Monday afternoon. The details: the SUV crashed into the crowd about 4:40 p.m. on Sunday. At least 40 people were reported to have been down at one point. Paramedics took 23 injured to 6 area hospitals. They included 11 adults and 12 children. Others took themselves for treatment. Children's said it received 15 patients and had no fatalities. Thank God. Aurora Summit said it received 13 patients. Of those, 3 were listed in critical condition, 4 were in serious condition, and 6 were listed in fair condition. Ascension said 1 patient was treated and released from its Elmbrook Hospital. Waukesha Memorial deferred questions about the number of injured patients it received to police. The Archdiocese of Milwaukee said 1 Catholic priest was among the injured. A witness told WISN that she saw a driver in an SUV barreling down the street into people who were marching in the parade. The woman said the driver hit the Milwaukee dancing grannies and at least 1 person flipped over the hood of the SUV. The witness said that she saw at least 4 injured people not moving on the ground. She said the driver kept going and did not stop. The woman said she saw nurses run to help those who were on the ground. Some were unresponsive, she said. One nurse told WISN 12 that she knew 2 victims died. Another witness estimated the SUV was going about 40 when it hit the crowd of people. Video on the Facebook showed the SUV swerve around the back of the Waukesha South Band and hit some band students. The FBI Milwaukee field office is aware of the reporting of the incident in Waukesha. The local and state authorities are leading the response, the agency tweeted. Alright, Vampire Hunter, for you, I'm going to play this one more time. But it's pretty horrifying. But we're going to do this just for record. Where it bounces there, that hit me. And by the way, this is under 40 miles from where I'm sitting right now, where all this happened. Alright, we are going to... And that's the worst part of it. This year's theme was comfort and joy. Alright, let's listen to what the Waukesha police chief had to say about this.
Approximately 4:39 p.m. And I'll just give a brief summary. We'll do a formal briefing at 7:30. But about 4:39 p.m., the red SUV drove into our Christmas parade that we were holding downtown. More than 20 individuals were injured as a result of this incident. The Waukesha Police Department has recovered a suspect vehicle. It's an ongoing investigation. Victims were actually transported from the scene via ambulance. Officers actually transported some of the injured personnel and took them to the hospitals, and some victims were actually transported by family members and friends to the hospitals. Very tragic incident, very chaotic. There is no other threats involved. The scene is now safe. Again, it's very chaotic, very tragic incident. And my prayers and thoughts go out to the family members. And we'll give a formal briefing at 7:30. Thank you.
Do you have a suspect in custody?
We have a person of interest that we are looking into it at this time.
In custody?
Like I said, we have a person of interest. I have to get more information because I don't want to give you bad information, okay? So thank you.
Was he taken from the
Sorry, guys, that's it. 7:30, fire station number 1 is where we're going to do the rest of the press
Address of that,
conference,
sir?
okay?
Address of that?
130 West St. Paul.
Thanks.
All right, a brief update there from Waukesha.
So, yeah, that's what we're seeing off of that. And going back just to touch back on what was going on when I went to bed last night from the Daily Wire. Police issue shelter in place now. Order for everyone within half-mile radius of downtown Waukesha. From Ryan Saavedra. Law enforcement officials in Wisconsin issued a shelter-in-place now order for everyone within a half-mile radius of downtown Waukesha late Sunday evening, following an incident in which a driver ran over multiple people during a Christmas parade. If you're within a half-mile radius of the 5 points downtown, shelter in place now, the alert said. Wait for the all-clear message. There's the update from NBC 26. Police have issued a shelter-in-place order for everyone within a half-mile radius. The paramedics out there just in. We received this alert to shelter in place within a half-mile radius of downtown. Nearby Carroll University said the campus was on lockdown due to an ongoing incident and that everybody needed to shelter in place. More than 20 people were injured when an SUV plowed into a Christmas parade in the Milwaukee suburb of Waukesha on Sunday. The Associated Press reported a live video feed of the parade from the city of Waukesha, as well as videos taken by the parade attendees, showed a red SUV breaking through barriers and speeding into the roadway where the parade was taking place. Some local news reports said the law enforcement initially indicated there were at least 30 people down with injuries. Angelito Tenario, a West Allis alderman who is running for state treasurer, told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that it all happened so fast. So, the order has been lifted. It looks like they have secured and made everything safe, but yeah, all kinds of prayers to go on with this. And like I said at the top of the show, what is going on in southeast Wisconsin? Because this is within 40 miles of downtown Kenosha. Radius, not driving distance, a little bit further on driving distance, but this is within 40 miles of downtown Kenosha. Right after the Rittenhouse thing, there's a part of me that wonders if that's not involved in this, especially given the details that Ron Helton gave me about the perpetrator. I was thinking truck of peace at first because it was a Christmas parade, but I mean, could this be a protest of some sort? I don't know. But that's what we see off of this. On other southeast Wisconsin news, which by the way goes from here all the way to here from this point. Starting with NBC for the morning. Now we get to shift gears and do something at least a little bit positive. I don't know if I don't know anything about the perpetrator. Ron apparently has a PDF, an article linked on it, so I don't know. We'll see. From NBC News, Kyle Rittenhouse found not guilty on all counts. Before we read, let's watch. Before we read anything, let's watch and just see what happened with it.
Not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done, and we started just about 3 weeks ago.
Breathe.
And I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks. You were a wonderful jury to work with.
Give him look, he can't even take the drink. He's shaking.
Not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done, and we started just about 3 weeks ago. And I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks. You were a wonderful.
All right, reading again from NBC. From David K. Lee and Dion J. Hampton. A Wisconsin jury on Friday found Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty in the fatal shooting of 2 men during protests in Kenosha last year, capping a trial that touched on issues of gun rights and race. Rittenhouse, 18, from nearby Antioch, was cleared of all 5 charges related to his actions on August 25th of last year during protests over the shooting of Jacob Blake. Rittenhouse was charged with reckless homicide in the slaying of Joseph Rosenbaum and intentional homicide in the death of Anthony Hoover, 26. He also faced a charge of attempted intentional homicide for severely wounding Gage Grosskreutz, a 27-year-old paramedic from suburban Milwaukee who was there on that night volunteering his medical services. Oh my god, the fucking propaganda in NBC already. I mean, I went over one of them already. The shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake, by a white Kenosha police officer. A 27-year-old paramedic from the suburban Milwaukee who was there that night volunteering his medical services. Fuck off. That dude was there to protest and riot. And we know because he's given speeches at other protests and riots. Rittenhouse, in a dark suit and burgundy shirt, was overcome with emotion when he got the 5th not guilty verdict was read in court. He doubled over and hugged the defense attorney, Corey Shirafisi, who had to tell his client to relax and breathe. Fellow defense attorney Mark Richards joyously hit his hand on the table as the final not guilty verdict was read, while prosecutors looked down as the jurors' findings were announced. Yeah, I wonder what Gage's lawyer thinks about all this right now. Families of those he shot and killed held hands in court and cried as the verdicts were read. After 3.5 days of deliberations, some of the panel appeared fatigued in the jury box. As the verdicts were read, some had their hands on their chins, rubbed their eyes, and appeared ill at ease, shifting in their chairs and folding their arms across their chests. The jury of 7 women and 5 men deliberated for almost 25 hours since Tuesday morning, and Richard said that he was fearful. The long talks meant a compromise set of verdicts that would send his client to prison for at least some time. As time went on, we were afraid some horse trading in the jury room, and that's really what concerned us, Richards said. Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge Bruce Schrader thanked the jurors for their work. I couldn't have asked for a better jury to work with, said Schrader. It's truly been my pleasure. Just in terms of your attentiveness and your cooperation that you gave us. The judge told the jurors that the system worked. It justifies the confidence the founders of our country placed in you, Schrader said. The Kenosha County DA's office asked the community members to continue to express their opinions and feelings about the verdict in a civil and peaceful manner. While we're disappointed in the verdict, it must be respected, the officer said in a statement. We are grateful to the members of the jury for their diligent and thoughtful deliberations. The Kenosha community has endured much over the past 15 months, and yet we remain resilient and strong. Evers pleaded for calm before the verdict, but deployed 500 National Guard in anticipation of the post-verdict protests. No verdict will be able to bring back the lives of Anthony Hoover and Joseph Rosenbaum. or heal Gage Grosskreuz's injuries, just as no verdict can heal the wounds or trauma experienced by Jacob Blake and his family, Evers said, while his wife was being cucked by Jacob Blake. I have seen the pain and frustration of so many. We must remain steadfast in our commitment to ending violence in our communities. President Biden urged Americans to accept the verdicts and remain peaceful in protest. And we'll be watching some of that and talking about some of the other things that went along with that as well. So, yes, not guilty on all counts. He is a free man. And Ron Helton has an opinion. Katie said, Gage Grosskreuz's lawyer just sees stacks of money with wings flying away. Fly away, fly away. $10 million just evaporated. All right. Nadler got in on this almost immediately. The New York Times, a former newspaper, reports Kyle Rittenhouse, who fatally shot 2 men and wounded another, was found not guilty of intentional homicide and 4 other felony charges in a deeply divisive case that fed a national debate over vigilantism, gun rights, and the definition of self-defense. And that goes to the New York Times article. Representative Jerry Nadler tweets out about this. This heartbreaking verdict is a miscarriage of justice and sets a dangerous precedent which justifies federal review by DOJ. Justice cannot tolerate armed persons crossing state lines looking for trouble while people engage in First Amendment protected protests. Yeah, Nadler is trying to bring federal charges onto this right now. I don't think he's going to. I don't think it's going to work, but he's trying. He wants there to be a guilty verdict here somewhere because, I mean, it has seemed, with a lot of the stuff that I've read, seen, and watched over the past 15 days. 21 days, I should say. Over the past 21 days, the things that I've read, seen, etc. that have gone on. I look at this and I say, it does seem like a lot of these people believed that if they put Rittenhouse in prison, it was going to bring Rosenbaum and Hoover back. Or bring Jacob Blake back. Or bring Tamir Rice back from the dead. That was the name I was just trying to think of. But don't worry, it's not a religion. From the Daily Mail, Democrat House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler blasts Wisconsin verdict as a miscarriage of justice, and he calls for federal review as Republicans demand Biden apologize for comparing Kyle Rittenhouse to a white supremacist. From Jeff Earl, Deputy U.S. Political Editor for DailyMail.com. House Judiciary Chairman Representative Jerrold Nadler on Friday called the Rittenhouse verdict a miscarriage of justice and called for federal review as Republicans demanded President Biden apologize for comparing Rittenhouse to a white supremacist. Nadler issued a statement after the jury found Rittenhouse not guilty on 5 counts, setting off a round of conflicting reaction from lawmakers. Carbonated water for the win. Hit it right on the nose, too. Fly away almost as fast as Binger's Law Degree going up in flames. Absolutely. Justice cannot tolerate armed persons crossing state lines looking for trouble while people engage in First Amendment protected protests. Rittenhouse cannot be tried again for the same alleged crime, and the DOJ does not have the authority to prosecute state crimes, although it does probe law enforcement for bias or misconduct. President Biden said Friday that he stands by the jury that found Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty, as Republicans renewed demands that he apologize for comparing the Kenosha shooter to white supremacists in the wake of the verdict. Well, let's listen to him. Let's listen to the House Plant in Chief, shall we? Drop the music.
Well, look, I stand by what the jury has concluded. The jury system works, and we have to abide by it.
Mr. President, what is the state of your health, sir? What is the state of your health after this exam today? Good.
They're going to release all the detail. I feel great. Nothing's changed. We're in good shape. And so, I'm looking.
That is some disingenuous fucking reporting right there. That right there is some disingenuous fucking shit. We have to stand by what the jury said. What's your health? What's your health? What's your health? And look at the look of relief on his face, too. I don't have to answer anything more about the Rittenhouse case. I made my statement. So this is immediately before everything happened. This crazy woman, as they were waiting for everything. Fuck America, a woman says before having a seizure on the Kenosha courthouse steps.
I am a monument. I am a monument. Fuck America.
Guys in the back, do not push. We got people.
Quick. Yo, stop that, quick. Shit, okay? Holy shit. Get her. Somebody. Hey, get here.
Hold her to her side. Keep her on the side. Keep her on the side.
Back up. Yeah.
I want to point out the irony just off the top of this before we'll watch the beginning of this video in just a second again, but this woman out here in the long coat that says fuck 12 on the back is out here protesting for 12 to put a kid in jail for the rest of his fucking life. And that's some of the intellectual inconsistencies that go along with everything else that goes with this too. And I know that they're trying to, I can't think of the girl's name right now, but the other girl from Kenosha who allegedly shot her sex trafficker in self-defense, they're trying to get that up there. I don't know enough about that to comment on that. And I'm seeing two extremely conflicting stories about that. I don't know what actually happened with that. I know there are some people saying that it was shot in the back of the head, took a selfie with it, stole the car, but there are other people that are saying she was absolutely innocent and she was about to be sex trafficked and hit again. I don't know what happened there. And I'm not going to pretend to, just to make the report off of it. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusion on that one. I cannot tell you what happened with that because I don't know. But there are a lot of people that are trying to get her off for self-defense herself. But yeah, just going back to this.
I am a monument. I am a monument. Fuck America.
Guys in the back, do not push. We got people.
Quick.
I am a monument. Now, going back to what it was that Mr. Biden had to say, Kamala Harris had another avenue to go off of this, because she's Kamala fucking Harris. There's still a lot more work to do. Kamala Harris appears to contradict Biden by suggesting Rittenhouse acquittal shows justice system not equitable. Day after President said he was angry, though he stands by what the jury concluded. Also from the Daily Mail, from Ariel Zilber, for dailymail.com. Let me see if we can get this up. We can. So we can watch the video of her having to say this too. Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday appeared to contradict her boss, President Biden, expressing disappointment over the acquittal of accused vigilante. The propaganda, I swear. Today's verdict speaks for itself. Let's listen. Let's just listen to what she had to say.
I have questions about the verdict, and the verdict really speaks for itself. As many of you know, I've spent a majority of my career working to make the criminal justice system more equitable, and clearly there's a lot more work to do.
Madam Vice President.
More equitable. Is that what we're saying? As you spent your entire career as DA in California, putting black people in jail or minor drug offenses, and then holding their sentences even longer to try to keep them as cheap firefighter labor for the California wildfires. There is no reason for you to be weighing in on this. You should be staying as far out of the limelight as you can, Kamala Harris. Let's just listen to that one more time, just in case you didn't believe what it was that she said the first time.
Well, it was a good trip, and I have questions about the verdict, and the verdict really speaks for itself. As Meg, you know, I've spent a majority of my career working to make the criminal justice system more equitable, and clearly there's a lot more work to do.
Madam Vice President,
I'm trying to make it more equitable. I don't just want black people in jail forever. I want everybody in jail forever. So I can come out here and keep more people in the jail fighting the fires in California. This is some fun stuff here. Don't make me hate the Mandalorian, dude. Seriously. Mandalorian star Pedro Pascal memorializes Rittenhouse attackers, says they were murdered. From John Brown. Pedro Pascal, the lead actor from the Disney Plus Star Wars series The Mandalorian, tweeted in memory of Kyle Rittenhouse's attackers on Saturday and claimed they were murdered. Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Hoover, 27, murdered August 25th, 2020. Rest in peace, Pascal tweeted. Pedro, this isn't the way. Rosenbaum was a convicted sex offender in Arizona who was barred from possessing a firearm, according to the Associated Press. Hoover, who chased after Rittenhouse with a skateboard, had been convicted for domestic abuse and disorderly conduct in 2018 and also served a prison stint in 2012 for choking his brother. Pascal's tweet came a day after jurors in Kenosha acquitted Rittenhouse, 18, on all charges related to the deaths of Rosenbaum and Hoover, whom he shot in August 2020 during a riot in the city. The shootings occurred on the second night of rioting and violence in the small Wisconsin town after the police shooting of Jacob Blake during a domestic disturbance call. The police officer involved in that shooting faced no charges at either state or federal level after investigations found Blake was reaching for a knife when he was shot. Rittenhouse, who argued that he shot the man in self-defense, would have faced a mandatory life sentence if found guilty and convicted of first-degree intentional homicide. Pascal, who plays the titular character in The Mandalorian and starred in the Netflix hit series Narcos, has drawn attention because of posts he made to his social media accounts, which are replete with political statements. In 2020, he posted a since-deleted tweet likening Trump supporters to Nazi Confederates, according to the New York Post. Pascal's co-star Gina Carano was fired from The Mandalorian after stoking controversy for conservative-leaning posts she made on social media, including one which she compared today's political divide to events in Germany in the 30s. Sorry, that word triggers the algorithms over on YouTube, so... She previously caught backlash for other comments about the pinko fucking pox, the use of gender pronouns, and election fraud. She claimed that Pascal, whose pronouns are in his bio, helped me understand why people were putting them in their bios. Hey, mine are in my bio. My pronouns are your mom. And that does kind of, that really kind of blows my mind, because Corrado was fired for a lot more tame statements than what Pedro Pascal did. And I know Lauren Chen pointed out the fact that, you know, it seems like really in Hollywood, it's a lot of these people are trying to go out and defend pedophiles, and it should be one thing or the other. I do want to remind everybody the fact that in this situation where 3 people were running at Rittenhouse and he had to put them down in self-defense, that it didn't matter what their past criminal histories were. It mattered what was happening in that moment. That they were attacking a person. Now, we can make the Rosenbaum joke that I love so much. Forever and ever, amen. In fact, I'm going to make it again right now. Rosenbaum did die doing what he loved, chasing after an underage boy. So, I mean, that's poetic injustice in and of itself. Everybody should die doing what they love. But it's just, why? Why are these people memorialized? Now, the family, I can understand. I don't like it, but the family I can at least understand. ABC News tweets out, parents of Anthony Hoover, who was shot and killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, react to the verdict. Today's verdict means there's no accountability to the person who murdered our son. He bashed him in the fucking head with a skateboard. Statement. Today's verdict means there's no accountability for the person who murdered our son. It sends the unacceptable message that armed civilians can show up at any town, incite violence, and then use the danger they have created to justify shooting people in the street. Incite violence? There was already violence going on. We hope that decent people will join us in forcefully rejecting that message and demanding more of our laws, our officials, and our justice system. John Hoover and Karen Bloom, parents of Anthony Hoover. He tried to bash a kid's head in with a skateboard. So I don't know what the hell else you want off of this, but regardless. Chico Sanzi, let's see if the Justice Department gets in on the weapons charge. It was dropped and not challenged in court. He can be prosecuted for taking an unregistered weapon across state lines, which is a federal offense. Well, he probably could. If he had taken that weapon across state lines. And that's the other thing, too. This person with a 1619 hat. The best offense is a good defense. If the state permits open gun carry, then a good defense is the opposing side, who normally protests unarmed. That's because a lot of the people protesting can't carry weapons because of felony charges. Grosskreutz. Must come to any and all rallies or protests to match the force currently showing up armed. Everyone can equally claim self-defense. Okay. I mean, as long as you keep it holstered until you absolutely need it. Or keep your fucking booger hook off the bang bang button until you fucking need it. You carry as many fucking guns around as you want. And the absolute crux of the argument right here. The person who embodies what the leftoids on Twitter are talking about and have been talking about all weekend. And even leading up to the not guilty verdict. The crux of the argument right here. Marissa Avalos 2311 says, "Can somebody tell me what happened? I just know he was in court but never knew what for." Sweetie, the trial is complete public access. Every second of it on PBS News on YouTube. You can watch it at double speed. It'll take you a few days because they went for 7 hours every single day. But you can watch every second of it. It is public access. It's out there. I stood aside from my regular followers here. I stood opposed to them and said there was a chance for Hoover. There was a chance for the conviction. I'm sorry, not on Hoover, on Rosenbaum. It was a weak chance, but there was a chance for conviction based on the evidence that went off of there. I looked at this as objectively as possible. I went into this with the hope and the belief that there was self-defense involved, but with all the evidence that came out, I looked at it as objectively as I possibly could, and knew that there was a chance that there could be the conviction on the Rosenbaum part. The Grosskreutz and the Hoover were absolutely self-defense. Same with Jump Kick Man. Same with McGinnis. Well, McGinnis put himself in that position. I'm not saying this like, how short was this skirt? No. He was standing there with arms and armaments in a position where there was a risk there. Same with Rittenhouse. There are armaments there that everybody else made their own conscious decision as to what level of safety they wanted to give up in order to go make their voices heard, no matter what the side there was. But there was a chance that the Rosenbaum thing could have been prosecuted. It was a weak one, but there was a chance. And I think the thing that tipped the jury over the edge to say this was not guilty for the Rosenbaum thing was, well, Granbo. Let's hear from Bubba Wallace. NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace says Rittenhouse would have gotten life if he were black. From Lexi Lonis. NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace says Rittenhouse was found not guilty on Friday for murder for killing 2 people and wounded another at protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin last summer. Would have gotten life in prison if he were black. Haha, let the boy be black and it would have been life. Hell, he would have had his life taken before this bullshit trial. Sad, Wallace said in a tweet shortly after the verdict. Rittenhouse's trial has divided the country largely along partisan lines, with conservatives praising the jury's decision and liberals condemning the decision. No, we're starting to actually see a few people come back over onto this and realize that this was a straight up fucking bullshit trial. But Bubba Wallace also comes out and says that it was Rittenhouse who tied the garage door pull down as well. Here's one for you. Libs of TikTok that never disappoints. Let's listen.
Well, looks like Wisconsin's gonna fucking burn tonight. All 5 charges. All 5 fucking charges. Not guilty. Unfucking real. If you don't know what white privilege looks like, look no goddamn further. Look no fucking further. He got away with murder. And just to walk scot-free. Unfucking believable. Well,
largely overweight, undercut. I'm surprised there isn't a nose piercing or a septum piercing in on this, but yeah, I can see why you're a little bit angry. And I mean, the TikTok Mama B energy suggests that this woman has kids on top of it. But I want to get in on this a little bit, Donna, because it looked like she actually rolled with this. Like she was on the tweet thread. Is that the chick from Bridesmaids? Used skateboard for sale. No owner no longer needs it. She was in the reply thread for this. Initially, I don't know if she still is anymore, if she deleted the reply off of this, but she was in there. She was rolling with it at least. Like, she at least had good spirits about it. I'm loving this. Roast me more. And rolling back and forth with people. So, I mean, yes, the absolute unhingedness of this particular video, notwithstanding, she at least rolled with it when they called her out for her bullshit. All right, from the Blaze. Democrat breaks ranks, tears into Rittenhouse persecution for being motivated by politics. Should be considered criminal. Yes, from Chris Enlow. Tulsi Gabbard, Coconut Mommy, broke from the ranks of the Democratic Party on Friday, offering a reaction to the Rittenhouse acquittal that countered from the dominant narrative of the Democrat Party. I know she put a video out on this, but it's not here. I know she put a video out on this later. We can probably go find it off her Twitter. Well, let's read what's up here. Democrat politicians and media members overwhelmingly reacted to the Rittenhouse being found not guilty by expressing outrage, blaming white supremacy, and claiming such an outcome would have been different had the defendant been black. President Biden said, I don't have to talk about this. I went in for a health screening. Rep. Cori Bush said that every facet of the trial was white supremacy in action. She reacted. The judge, the jury, the defendant, it's white supremacy in action. The system isn't built to hold white supremacists accountable. That's why black and brown folks were brutalized and put in cages while white supremacist murders walk free. Former NFL quarterback and current McDonald's drive-thru worker Colin Kaepernick said the verdict demonstrated the need to abolish our current system. He said, "We just witnessed a system built on white supremacy validate the terroristic acts of white supremacists. This only further validates the need to abolish our current system. White supremacy cannot be reformed." Meanwhile, Chris Cuomo, the dumber Cuomo brother, observed, "You're going to have people saying that if he was black, this will be different, right? Because we're dealing with systemic injustice right now. And even though this verdict, I believe, is justified by the law and the facts here, that's what we want every time. People are frustrated. You wouldn't get it if he was black, even though this might be the right outcome." What did Gabbard say? The former Hawaii congresswoman struck a much different tone. Instead, Gabbard highlighted problems that she saw with the persecution, suggesting their actions were politically motivated and should be investigated. "The jury got it right, finding Rittenhouse not guilty on all charges," Gabbard said. "The fact that charges were brought before any serious investigation is evidence that the government was motivated by politics, which itself should be considered criminal." Gabbard is not the only person to question the motivation of the persecutors. I mean, I've been calling them persecutors for a month. That should tell you something. Those who made such observations point to the fact that the persecutors filed 6 charges, including first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, and attempted first-degree attempted homicide, against Rittenhouse less than 2 days after the shooting incident took place amid the violent riots in Kenosha. Then there is the fact that persecutors overcharged Rittenhouse. The only non-felony Rittenhouse was charged with was being in possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18, but through a plain reading of the Wisconsin statutes, Kenosha County Circuit Judge Bruce Schrader determined Rittenhouse did not violate that law. Persecutor Binger was also accused of potentially violating basic constitutional law when he mentioned Rittenhouse's post-arrest silence during cross. Schrader admonished Binger for the incident. "I was astounded when you began your examination by commenting in the defendant's post-arrest silence," the judge said. "That's basic law. That's been basic law for 40, 50 years. That was one of my favorite moments of that trial. Yeah, this was a fuck story. Right from the beginning. But good on Coconut Mommy. She's still a nut on communism, though. GoFundMe. And this is the reason, by the way, I talked about this and I said there's no GoFundMe on this right now. First off, they've locked down replies. Only people GoFundMe mentioned can reply. So they put out a few different statements off of this. First off, GoFundMe. GoFundMe's terms of service prohibit raising money for the legal defense of an alleged violent crime. In light of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, we want to clarify when and why we have removed certain fundraisers in the past. And a Medium article about the GoFundMe policy on fundraisers for the legal defense of violent crime. Martyr Made, on the other hand, GoFundMe not only allowed a fundraiser for a group, Riot Kitchen, dedicated to providing logistical support for riots, but the company itself actually donated $500. The group was arrested outside Kenosha while filling up gas containers to distribute to rioters. And there it is, GoFundMe team. $500 to Riot Kitchen. Everybody else is anonymous except for Ricky Houghland. It was a stupid thing to donate to, but at least he had the good sense to put his own fucking name on it. But there, GoFundMe team. And with this, and I want to put this to a poll to the chat, if you guys can. I know most of you are lurking right now because it is Monday, and I don't usually do the chat. But if you're lurking right now, I want to put this out there to you guys and see if you think this is okay for me to do. And I'm going to do a Twitter poll about this as well. So I have the GoFundMe out there for the Turns and Pages Productions startup costs. It's out there. It's got about $600 in it. I haven't set up withdrawals yet, mostly because I've been massively busy. Every Sunday I get up and say, okay, this is the day I'm going to go do it. And then I wind up getting caught up in some other project instead. And then 10 o'clock rolls around on Sunday and I realize that I didn't do it. I don't know, in light of this, if I can work with GoFundMe, if I can accept this money. I don't know if it would be morally right. Now, and I don't want to lose all the money if we go to something else. There are a few other options that I have on the table for this, but it is, and I don't know if I can, with a clean conscience, accept this and give the fees out to GoFundMe. Because they are going to put a fee onto everything as well. Which is, I mean, I don't have a problem with a fee going to a company that's facilitating this. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I don't know if I can use these guys anymore. I really don't. And I don't know if I can accept and let them have the fee off of the $600 we've already raised for Turn Some Pages. So, think it over in the chat. And like I said, we'll put a Twitter poll out on this too. So, I don't know. It's just going to sit there in limbo right now until I decide. But I don't know if I can take it or not. And I'm not going to be advertising the GoFundMe anymore either. That's what I see off of it. From Fox Business. Thank you for visiting Fox Business. GoFundMe says... Shut up. GoFundMe says Rittenhouse fundraising okay now that he's acquitted. From Breck Dumas. GoFundMe issued a statement following the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse on Friday, explaining that fundraisers for the teen would now be allowed on the site, more than a year after the company pulled down every defense fund for him on the platform. In its statement, GoFundMe said that the terms of service prohibited money for the legal defense of an alleged Republican, violent crime. So, once charges for violent crime were brought against Rittenhouse in 2020, they removed all of them. If someone is acquitted of those charges, as Rittenhouse was today, the fundraiser started subsequently for the legal defense and other expenses would not violate this policy. The statement went on to say, a fundraiser to pay lawyers, cover legal expenses, or to help with ongoing living expenses for a person acquitted of those charges would remain active as long as we determine it's not a violation of any of our other terms, and, for example, the purpose is clearly stated, and the correct beneficiary is added to the fundraiser. But at the time that GoFundMe was shut down all Rittenhouse defense funds in August of last year, they allowed countless fundraisers for the defense of other individuals accused of violent crimes. Yeah, it's a regular thing for them. One of them was a defense fund for Mark Wilson, who claims he was acting in self-defense when he shot and killed a 17-year-old girl in a purported road rage incident. Wilson is currently on trial for murder in the case, yet the same GoFundMe that was created for him a few days after Rittenhouse's defense funds were stripped remains on GoFundMe. Rittenhouse shot 3 people in self-defense, including 2 during riots in Kenosha last summer. The jury decided in a verdict reached on Friday. GoFundMe did not immediately respond to Fox Business's request for comment on why the fundraiser for Wilson was and remains on the site despite their purging of what they said on Friday's statement were hundreds of other fundraisers between August and December of 2020 unrelated to Rittenhouse that we determined were in violation of the long-standing policy. GoFundMe was hit with enormous backlash when it pulled down Rittenhouse's fundraisers. Yeah, I'm actually in deep regret over the fact that all this went down, that I'm in deep regret of the fact that we used this for the suicide prevention fundraiser. I'm glad the AFSP got all that money, but I regret deeply the fact that we had to use GoFundMe to do it. After this, I don't want anything to do with these people anymore. And our fundraiser will be deleted at some point in the near future. It's just, I have to make the decision whether or not I can accept the fees going to them with a clear conscience. That's what I'm sitting in right now. From News Channel 8, GoFundMe explains why it removed fundraisers before Rittenhouse trial. From WFLA 8 On Your Side staff, in the wake of Rittenhouse being fully acquitted on charges after pleading self-defense in a deadly shooting in Wisconsin in 2020, GoFundMe explained why it removed online fundraisers for the legal teens fees last year. GoFundMe's terms of service prohibit raising money for the legal defense of an alleged violent crime, the company said in a statement posted to Medium. According to the statement, GoFundMe removed fundraisers that were started last year once charges for a violent crime were brought against Rittenhouse. GoFundMe said it was part of a regular monitoring effort that hundreds of other fundraisers unrelated to Rittenhouse were removed between August and December of 2020. In cases like Rittenhouse, where someone's acquitted, GoFundMe said a fundraiser started subsequently for their legal defense and other expenses would not violate the policy. A fundraiser to pay lawyers, cover legal expenses, or to help with ongoing living expenses for a person acquitted of those charges could remain active as long as we determine it's not in violation of any of our other terms and, for example, the purpose is clearly stated and the correct beneficiary is added to the fundraiser, the statement said. Yeah, there's that. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. Let's do protest news. We're almost done, actually, with the Rittenhouse stuff, and we'll probably just fly through these ones. But I wanted to touch on the ones that happened in town. Protesters trace route Rittenhouse took in Kenosha. From Pat Nabong. This is from Channel 3000, Madison's local station. Several dozen people gathered below the wind-whipped Wisconsin flag at Kenosha Civic Center Park on Sunday and warmed up with chants for justice before taking to the streets in protest of the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse. Demonstrators traced the route Rittenhouse took in August last year when he shot and killed 2 people and wounded a third during protests over police brutality. They carried signs that said, "Reject racist vigilante terror" and "The whole system is guilty." A couple of protesters carried long guns. Protesters regularly chanted, "No justice, no peace," and Anthony and JoJo, the latter referring to Anthony Hoover and Joseph Rosenbaum, both of whom were shot and killed by Rittenhouse. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, who walked along the first leg of a protest march in Chicago on Saturday, was scheduled to appear in Kenosha, but did not come. Do not come! Do not come! Organizers said he was instead working with congressional leaders to ask that Department of Justice investigate the case for further persecution. A release from Jackson's Rainbow Push Coalition earlier Sunday said the Justice Department should consider aiding and abetting charges for Rittenhouse's mother. They will get ahead. We will get ahead. How is there aiding and abetting if there's a not guilty charge, by the way? The verdict of not guilty is very revealing of the state of criminal justice in America, Bishop Grant, the Rainbow Push Coalition National Field Director, said in a statement. While Grant's statement said Rittenhouse violated federal laws, he did not explain further. Experts say Rittenhouse is unlikely to face federal charges because federal law applies only in very limited cases for homicides. Rittenhouse, a then 17-year-old former police youth cadet from Antioch, said he went to Kenosha with an AR-style semi-automatic rifle to protect property from rioters, but then he came under attack and feared for his life. The shootings happened during a tumultuous night of protests over the shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake, by a white Kenosha police officer. And that's the propaganda that Channel 3000 would have to put out. That's not surprising in the very least. Rittenhouse is white, as were those he shot, and his acquittal led to new debates over racial justice, vigilantism, and policing in America. Derek Johnson, NAAC president and CEO, said Sunday that the verdict was hard for African Americans to reconcile. Here you have a 17-year-old who illegally purchased a gun, dismissed, not true, traveled across state lines to protect property that was not his, for owners who did not invite him. That's also in question. And he put himself in harm's way based on the rhetoric that he's seen on social media platforms. Johnson told CBS's Face the Nation he called it a warning shot that vigilante justice is allowed in this country, or in particular communities. So yeah, they're going to ride this as far as they can at this point. From WGN, Kenosha marches continue. Boycotts promised in protest of Rittenhouse acquittal. What are you going to boycott? Are you going to boycott the city? Bye! Get out of there. It's a good feeling to get out of that fucking city. I did. It is a very good feeling to get out of that city. From Jenna Barnes. Dozens of protesters marched through Kenosha Sunday afternoon, saying they want to retrace the steps Kyle Rittenhouse took the night of August 2020, when he killed 2 people and injured a third person. Protesters said injustice was served Friday when a jury found Rittenhouse not guilty of all charges. The biggest thing that I want to say is it feels like these men died, their lives do not matter, and they do matter, said Carrie Ann Swart, fiancée of Joseph Rosenbaum. You know, the one who kicked him out that night. There are loved ones that are left behind that are grieving them right now, and we have no closure to that, none whatsoever. Swart fears that Rosenbaum and Hoover, the other man that Rittenhouse was cleared of killing, will be forgotten. Well, they probably should. To the dustbin of history with everybody else. So I'm just asking that everybody please remember their names, Swart said. Please remember the names, because JoJo and... oh, Jesus. And Anthony meant something to people, and they're gone. As the protesters rallied, few people armed with rifles stood outside the crowd. At least one counter-protester drove by, shouting justice was served. Among the protesters was the Rainbow Push Coalition. And we had this pair as well. Armed father and daughter duo march alongside anti-Rittenhouse protesters to protect them. And a lot of people are making a big deal out of this. But, I mean, good. It's their right. They're open carrying in accordance with the law. I don't know if they're from the state or not, so I don't know. They've got the radios on. Good. If that's what you feel you need to do for the protection, as long as you don't turn and fire in an aggressive manner. If you're not the aggressor, good. Absolutely. There are comments on this. Whoa! Well, now we'll see gun control laws enacted at lightning speed across all red states. No, we won't. It's only people like you, Arif Siddiqui, who want to see black people lose their ability to defend themselves so they can be easier enslaved. Good. Enjoy your freedoms. Just a couple other quick hitters here, because while we didn't see any violence in Kenosha itself, we saw some in various other cities. From KPIX, CBS, San Francisco Bay Area, Rittenhouse verdict draws protesters to downtown Oakland on Friday night. More than 100 people were gathering in a peaceful demonstration in downtown Oakland early Friday, following the verdict of announcement in Wisconsin on the trial of Rittenhouse, the teenager accused of killing 2 people and shooting another during a Black Lives Matter unrest last summer in Kenosha. The Oakland Protest, which began just after 6, was taking place in downtown at Frank Ogawa Plaza, adjacent to City Hall. Organizers said they want the U.S. Department of Justice to take a look at the Rittenhouse case. But we see fires and everything else burning off in the background, once again. And once again, if they're going to peacefully protest, like the march in Kenosha, if they're going to go back and be peaceful about that, then absolutely, absolutely, protest. You're wrong, but protest. It's your right. It's your right to be as stupid as you want to be. From KSLA 12 out of Shreveport, Louisiana, hundreds protest Rittenhouse acquittal across the U.S. Law enforcement in Portland declared a riot Friday night as about 200 demonstrators protested the acquittal of a teen who killed 2 people and injured another in Wisconsin. The protesters were breaking windows, throwing objects at police, and talking about burning down a local government building in downtown Portland, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office said. Big difference. Well, that's Oakland, so... But yes, Portland, they're busting windows. Again, I don't know if they ever even stopped. Police Bureau said that several people were given citations, but only one person who had an outstanding warrant was arrested. On another matter, was arrested. The protesters gathered following the acquittal. About 1,000 people marched through downtown Chicago Saturday afternoon, organized by BLM and other local activist groups. According to Chicago Tribune, protesters held signs that said "Stop White Supremacy" and were hitting the streets to protest this racist injustice system with a picture of Rittenhouse carrying a weapon. In North Carolina, dozens gathered near the state capitol building to protest the verdict. The Rally News and Observer reported speakers led a crowd of roughly 75 people in chants of "No justice, no peace," and "Abolish the police." The same police that they wanted to use to put Rittenhouse in prison forever. Police officers on a motorcycle accompanied the protesters and blocked traffic for them as they marched down a street past bars and restaurants. And from the New York Daily News, Rittenhouse verdict, protesters rally outside Barclays Center, but they're outnumbered by Brooklyn's Nets fans. From Kerry Burke and Joseph Wilkinson. About 200 angry people, upset and unsurprised protesters gathered outside Barclays Center in Brooklyn on Friday night in one of a number of protests. You can get that in a number of different places around the country over Rittenhouse's acquittal on all charges for shooting 2 protesters and maiming a 3rd in Wisconsin. The demonstrators were universally disappointed by the jury's decision, but they saw it coming after watching the trial. "The system is set up this way," said Phoebe Quinn, a 4th grade teacher from Brooklyn. "I'm angry and tired. I'm out here to show support to the marginalized in our community. I'm infuriated. We saw this case brewing," said She Assay, councilman-elect for the 36th district in Brooklyn, which includes parts of Bedford, Stuyvesant, and Crown Heights. Rittenhouse is the mascot for white supremacist movement in the U.S. said Assay. "Being out here, for many blacks, this is like therapy for our pain." Why? He supported your movement. Friday night's demonstration was notably smaller than many protests from the summer of 2020, and ralliers were vastly outnumbered by people trying to get into the Nets game. Look, I look at this and I mean, everybody saw this coming. And right from the beginning, what did I say? Overcharged. And the Daily News has another article over there. "Not guilty, but not innocent. Rittenhouse was very wrong to look for trouble, armed to the teeth." He had one long gun. That's not armed to the teeth. Armed to the teeth is like how I am when I go out in public. Armed to the teeth. One long rifle in 223. Are you fucking kidding? That's not armed to the teeth. Armed to the teeth is like the scene in The Construct and The Matrix, right before they went in to save Morpheus. What do you need besides a miracle? Guns. Lots of guns. But it's just, I mean, people were going to be disappointed no matter what. And they were going to riot no matter what. I notice they're a lot more peaceful now than they were before because, well, we look at this. I don't know if the Christmas parade thing had to do with Rittenhouse. I don't. That's for a jury to decide and police officers to do so, but it does look like they're going to try and sweep this one back up under the rug too, but it's just, I don't know. But what I do know is that from this trial, it wasn't Kyle Rittenhouse's killing that was on trial. It was your right to self-defense. That's part of the reason they overcharged him the way that they did, because they couldn't get more than a few years off of him, especially for first-time offender, if they'd have gone with Man 3, which is what should have been brought forward after the investigation was done. And pointed out by Tulsi Gabbard herself. They brought forward the charges before there was an investigation done. They absolutely fucking did. Because it was politically motivated. It was absolutely politically motivated. Anybody else that tells you differently is lying. They could have got Man 3 out of this if they'd have tried. It was still a stretch, but they could have had Man 3 out of this. Rittenhouse would have done a year. He would have got out and redone his life and rethought his life. But they had to go straight for murder one because, of course, they had to. Appease the mob. Go for murder one. This person dared shoot back against protesters. Oh, looks like we've got some busy stuff over here. Yeah, the D-Live chat's not connecting to the main chat right now, so... But that's okay, I have D-Live up as a monitor. Alright, let's keep going. So, just in case you thought that it's only white people that get off for self-defense here, this one slipped completely under the radar as the Rittenhouse thing was going on, but it happened the same day. Andrew Coffey IV, found not guilty on all counts of murder, attempted first-degree murder, from Steve King. Andrew Coffey was found not guilty on all counts of murder and attempted first-degree murder on Friday. Coffey is accused of firing at Indian River County Sheriff's deputies during an early morning drug raid at his home back in 2017. His girlfriend, Alteria Woods, was caught in the crossfire, shot 10 times, and later died. Coffey was charged with the murder of Woods after a grand jury exonerated 2 law enforcement officers for her death. Because of course they did. It's the same reason that Binger's office, ADA Binger's office, can both look at the Shesky shooting and say, no, 7 in the back was perfectly justified. With a knife. But Rittenhouse, why didn't you stop shooting after you hit him in the hip the first time? Before the case went to the jury's hand, Coffey took the stand to defend himself, blaming deputies for his girlfriend's death. The defense said Coffey was asleep and thought the flashbang was gunfire, so he fired his gun because he thought he was under attack. I was trying to protect me and Alteria, and I thought I was doing that, but I feel I didn't protect her. I can't sleep with that. They killed her, Coffey said. The prosecutor said deputies did announce that they were there. They say Coffey fired at deputies, and they returned fire. Coffey was found guilty on 1 count of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, which could have a penalty of up to 30 years. He was also found not guilty on the murder of Woods. The Indian River County Sheriff, Eric Flowers, released a statement following the verdict. They better not fucking give him 30 years for that. That would be fucking ridiculous. The police went in with a flashbang, whether or not they announced, that would be for body cams to determine, and then shot the dude's old lady. No, fuck you. You better not give him 30 years for that. But that's what we have here. Alright, now let's do everything else that should be top of the line news. Except for the fact we had to deal with a crazed lunatic in a fucking SUV, and probably some of the best news that we've heard all week. From Yahoo News, to start off with. She is officially the first woman president we've ever had in U.S. history. Biden briefly transfers power to Harris, making her the first woman in U.S. history to hold powers of the presidency. From Chris Wilson. President Biden briefly transferred power to the presidency to the Vice President Harris on Friday morning as he underwent a routine physical. The White House announced that Biden, 78, would be going under anesthesia to receive a colonoscopy at Walter Reed, making Harris the first woman to hold the powers of the presidency. White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead released a statement on Friday morning with the announcement stating that Harris would work from her office in the West Wing while the president was sedated. I want to be sedated. Nothing to do and nothing to see. I want to be sedated. Sorry, a little bit of a Ramones moment there. Biden entered Walter Reed a little before 9 a.m. Eastern Time. White House said that Biden formally submitted in letters to Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont, President pro tempore of the Senate, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, informing them of the transfer at 10:10 a.m. and resumed his duties at 11:35 a.m. According to red-haired bobblehead, the president is in good spirits and will remain at Walter Reed as he completes the physical. So, yes, now we get to listen to that forever. The first female president in history, Kamala Harris, for 90 minutes. From CNN, Biden deemed fit to successfully execute the duties of the president after first physical in office. From Caitlin Collins, Betsy Klein, Kate Sullivan, and Kevin Liptak. This is a full-on propaganda piece, so prepare yourself. Get the waders on, because we're about to go into some bullshit. President Biden underwent his annual physical Friday morning at Walter Reed, his first such appointment since he was inaugurated as the oldest first-term president in U.S. history. Afterward, his physician, Kevin O'Connor, wrote in a memo Biden remains fit for duty and fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations. The doctor, who has been with the president since he first served as vice president, singled out 2 areas of observation he set aside for detailed investigation: an increasing frequency and severity of throat clearing and coughing during speaking engagements, and the president's ambulatory gait, or walking abnormality, which O'Connor said was perceptibly stiffer and less fluid than it was a year ago. Both have noticeable elements of Biden's public appearances since taking office. In a detailed 6-page summary of Biden's health, O'Connor said X-ray shows Biden has arthritis of his spine and normal wear and tear damage for someone his age. The doctor characterized that damage as moderate to severe and said it was not severe enough to warrant any specific treatment. He wrote, "It would help account for some of Biden's recent stiffness and clumsy gait. An extremely detailed neurological exam was reassuring," O'Connor wrote, and showed no evidence of stroke, multiple sclerosis, or Parkinson's. What about cognitive decline? Biden also has a condition known as hiatal hernia, which causes him to have reflux, something O'Connor said could account for his more frequent throat clearing. The document contained detailed accounting of the physical exam, including his height of 5 feet 11.65 inches, his weight of 184 pounds, and his blood pressure of 120/70. Biden does not drink or use tobacco and works out 5 times a week, according to the report. President Biden remains a healthy, vigorous 78-year-old male who is fit to successfully execute the duties of the president, to include those as chief executive, head of state, and commander-in-chief, O'Connor wrote in the summary. Biden received a routine colonoscopy Friday while at Walter Reed. The process, which required anesthesia, meant that he temporarily transferred power to Vice President Harris, who became the first woman to assume the presidential power, for 85 minutes on Friday morning. So, that's what they had to say here. The Daily Wire had to push back, though. Biden's physical reveals multiple health issues, did not appear to have gotten cognitive test reports. President Biden completed his first physical as president late last week, which revealed that he suffers from multiple health issues and does not appear to have undergone cognitive testing. Biden's physical was completed by Kevin O'Connor, and it included consultation with several of the presidential specialty consultants from the Walter Reed National Medical Center, including specialists in optometry, otolaryngology, dentistry, orthopedics, foot and ankle, orthopedic spine, and physical therapy, neurology, cardiology, and radiology, numerology, Big Bang theology, lobotomies and telekinetic psychology, anesthesiology, and gastroenterology. O'Connor highlighted 2 new health issues that he noticed. The president has experienced increasing frequency and severity of throat clearing and coughing during speaking engagements. He has exhibited such symptoms for as long as I've known him, but they certainly seem to be more frequent and more pronounced over the last few months. It is acknowledged that this perception may be artificially confounded by the undeniable fact that the president, a much greater attention is directed toward his public engagements, as compared to that which he experienced in previous positions. An ambulatory gait is perceptibly stiffer and less fluid than it was a year or so ago. He has severe reasonable explanations for this in his orthopedic history, but then again, a detailed investigation was appropriate. Biden also received treatment for non-valvular atrial fibrillation, hyperlipidemia, gastroesophageal reflux, seasonal allergies, and a mild sensory peripheral neuropathy of the feet. Yeah, I'm not a doctor, folks. CNN chief medical correspondent Sanjay Gupta was asked on air yesterday if Biden underwent any tests that measured mental acuity like former President Trump did. It doesn't seem like it. I read pretty carefully through the doctor's report, and there was. They mentioned neurological exam, but that was more in terms of testing motor strength and sensation and things like that, Gupta responded. President Trump had something known as the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It's sort of a screening test for dementia, and you know that there was no mention of that sort of thing here. It's a constant point of discussion. I can tell you within the geriatrics community, I wrote this book last year about brain health, and one of the things that kept coming up was, should these types of screening tests, cognitive screening tests, be more commonly done? And there's many in that community who believe that starting at age 65, there should be some sort of screening that's done. Ron Peterson, who runs Alzheimer's Clinic at Mayo, has been somebody who talked about that, but as far as we know, President Biden, we didn't see any kind of tests like that performed. Yeah, they can't afford to have that happen right now. Not with Harris being so completely underwater. With everything that she has for polling. The only reason I think Biden is safe right now is the fact that Kamala is polling so much lower than he is. Speaking of Biden, we've got a leftover from Friday. President Biden says U.S. considering diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Beijing Olympics. President Biden said Thursday that the U.S. was considering a diplomatic boycott of next year's Winter Olympics in Beijing over China's human rights abuses. A move that would keep American dignitaries, but not athletes, from the game. Speaking to reporters, as he hosted the Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau in the Oval Office, Biden said that backing a boycott of the Olympics in February was something. It's something we're considering, man. Come on. The U.S. and other nations traditionally send high-level delegations to each Olympics. First Lady Biden led the American contingent to the Summer Olympics in Tokyo this year, and Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff led a delegation to the Paralympic Games. No, that's too easy. The jokes write themselves too easily. Nope, not going to go there. Not going to do it. International advocacy groups and some members of Congress have called for a symbolic U.S. boycott of the Games in Beijing over China's treatment of Uyghurs and its crackdown on freedoms in Hong Kong. The participation of American athletes would be unaffected by the boycott. So they're going to send athletes over there, but they're not going to send a diplomatic envoy, is what they're saying off of this. I don't know. It just seems symbolic at this point, especially if you're actually going to send athletes. Now, if you weren't going to send athletes at all, I would have a conversation about this and see. But if you're going to send athletes but not a delegation, okay. But it is what it is. From Reuters, archived of course, as Fed contemplates a move, Democratic states lag furthest in jobs recovery. From Howard Schneider. Hopes to restore U.S. employment to its pre-pandemic level, an aim of the Federal Reserve and the Biden admin, now rest on the recovery of jobs in New England and California, potentially troubling fact that the president's Democratic Party, ahead of critical midterms elections, as the Fed plots a possible turn to tighter monetary policy. Data released on Friday showed that through October, employment rates in states with Republican governors was close to 99% of what it was in February of 2020, while Democratic-led states lagged at roughly 96%. While state-level estimates can be volatile, particularly month-to-month, they appear larger. The apparently larger remaining job shortfall in Democratic-leaning areas echoes the choices and political divisions that emerged early in the pandemic. States in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic tended to impose stricter measures against the pinko fucking pox and keep them in place longer than Republican-led states in the South and the West. Employment fell more sharply in those areas, and the gap has remained even late in the recovery. Recovery has come faster than many expected, but it remains uneven. Of the 10 states that had more jobs in October of this year than in February of 2020, 7 had Republican governors, and another 6 GOP-led states were within a percentage point of their pre-pandemic job level. the level of jobs alone doesn't tell the full story, and of course it doesn't. And on the key measures like the overall employment to population ratio, considered a more complete measure of the job market health than the unemployment rate, Republican strongholds like Texas and Florida remain well below levels seen before the pinko-fucking-pox crisis. But the job level does pose a potential challenge for Biden, with important Democratic states like New York and California still 5% below the pre-pandemic peak, and political battlegrounds like Pennsylvania also lagging. Until recently, it seemed the Fed was intent on keeping monetary policy loose and borrowing costs easy for as long as it took to claw those jobs back. That aim may now be in conflict with the Fed's other goal of stable prices, challenged by a run of inflation that's prompting the central bank policymakers to discuss faster move to tighter policy, which could slow job growth before areas central to Biden's political chances are able to catch up. Yeah, I think they might be fucked at this point. They are trying, but I think they might be at this point fucked. From the Blaze, Winsome Sears in the news. Winsome Sears abruptly shuts down CNN host who claims CRT is not a part of Virginia curriculum. It's weaved in. Lieutenant Governor elect Winsome Sears schooled CNN host Dana Bash on Sunday after the media host claimed that critical race theory is not being taught in Virginia schools. During an interview on State of the Union, host Bash declared the critical race theory is not a part of Virginia's curriculum. Sears immediately called her on that. "I beg to differ that CRT is not taught," Sears said. "I didn't say that," Bash responded. "I'm just saying it's not the curriculum. Let's just be clear. Let's listen."
Former Vice President of the Virginia Board of Education. So explain how you think race should be taught in Virginia public schools.
Well, let me back up. I beg to differ that CRT is not taught.
I didn't say that. I just said it's not in the curriculum, just to be clear.
No. It is part of the curriculum. It's weaved in and out of the curriculum. In fact, in 2015, former governor, who was just defeated, McAuliffe, his state board of education had information on how to teach it. So it's weaved in. So, it's semantics, but it's weaved in. What we want to say, and what Governor-elect Youngkin has said, is that all of history must be taught. The good, the bad, and the ugly, because what we learn from history, Dana, is that we don't learn from history, and we continue to repeat the same mistakes. But while we're talking about history, how about we talk about how people from the 1890s, black people from the 1890s to about 1950, 1960, according to the U.S. Census, had been marrying in a percentage that had far surpassed anything that whites had ever done. When we talk about the Tulsa race riots, let's ask ourselves, how did the black people amass so much wealth right after the Civil War so that it could even be destroyed? How did they do that? They were coming from nothing, from zero. Some of them never even got the 40 acres and a mule. Let's try to emulate that. The one thing that the slaves wanted, three top things, their freedom certainly. Then the next thing was they wanted to find their families. And the third thing was they wanted an education. And my God, when did education become a bad word among black people? No. We are going to have a good education system. It's going to represent all people, and I'm going to help see that through, because education lifted my father out of poverty when he came to America with only $1.75. Education lifted me because I have to find my own way in this world, and education will lift all of us.
I want to talk about keeping on schools, but about vaccines in schools. Virginia.
Good on Sears. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't have put that better. When did education become such a dirty word among that community? It was uncomfortable because we have to go back and talk about slavery. No, I don't need no school, man. I learn what I need on the streets. It is societal. The education system can only do so much, but a lot of this is societal. All right. Got, quite a few more, but we still have some more to go. Speaking of education, from NBC, Opinion Analysis and Essays, schools face parents who want to ban CRT and don't get how the teaching works. From Christina Wyman, author of the forthcoming novel, Jawbreaker. Because of course she's promoting a book, why wouldn't she be? Parents and politicians across the country are interfering with the curricula that public schools use to teach students. State legislatures are passing laws to keep CRT out of schools. Literary classics like Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye are banned for sexual content, and school libraries are coming under attack for containing books about gender. There are even parents who are trying to shield students from learning about mental health and suicide, as though helping children build an emotional fortitude is a bad thing. While the political climate and national involvement of school districts gave the phenomenon a broader platform and have more serious ramifications, this behavior is nothing new. Parents have always tried to interfere with the curricula, as I observed while teaching the middle school in the mid-2000s. Even then, there was no shortage of parental input about the content of my instruction, from books to test questions. Part of the problem is that parents think that they have the right to control the teaching and learning because their children are the ones being educated, but it actually doesn't work that way. It's sort of like entering a surgical unit thinking you interfere with the operation simply because the patient is your child. No, see, that's not how this works, and this is going to backfire on you. If you are in the GOP across the country and you want to oust these Marxist fucking Democrats, right here, this is your campaign ad, right here. Teaching is a science. Unless they're licensed and certified, parents are qualified to make the decisions about the curricula. In fact, parental interference can actually hinder student advancement. An educator's primary goal is to teach students to think. No. Your educator's primary goal is to teach students what to think. I've been through this system before. Parents who attempt to influence the curricula with their personal opinions, ideologies, and biases hinder that goal. Get your kids out of these fucking schools. Do whatever it takes at this point. Get your kids out of these schools. When I first pursued teaching nearly 2 decades ago, I was struck by the list of requirements I had to fulfill for the state of New Jersey. Well, it's part of the problem. To determine that I was qualified, several years of focused college instruction, followed by intense mentorship and state-level exams, were the norm back then, and more exams have been introduced since. Not in this state. I went on to graduate school for even more intense study and eventually earned a PhD in curriculum, instruction, and teacher education. I've spent the last 16 years fully engaged in teaching and curriculum development, including a steady stream of professional development courses. So it sounds to me like you're pissed off about this argument about CRT because it's about to take a whole fucking bunch of money out of your pocket. Get your kids out of these schools. And yes, if you really want, if you're running anywhere in the country in the GOP in a contested seat at all, here's your campaign ad right here. From the Washington Post, more CYA stuff. Fauci swamped by angry calls over Beagle experiments after a campaign that included misleading image. From Yasmin Abu Taleb and Beth Reinhard. St. Anthony of Fauci, the patron saint of medicine, was swamped by so many angry messages and threats in late October that his assistant quit answering the phone for 2 weeks. The COVID chief got 3,600 phone calls in 36 hours, just as he and other Biden admin officials were preparing the campaign to vaccinate young children. Yeah, this doesn't sound like an evil villain plot. Much of the onslaught stemmed from a viral video and false claim that the agency Fauci leads, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, had funded a medical experiment in which beagles were trapped in mesh cages filled with diseased sandflies, according to 4 National Institutes of Health officials. Familiar with the calls, the outrage was supercharged by a bipartisan letter signed by 24 members of Congress that questioned the agency's funding of medical research on dogs. You worthless piece of shit. You should be put in prison, torturing animals, said caller in one of 15 voicemails obtained by the Washington Post. Where democracy goes to die in darkness. I'd like to see you out in the sand, tie you down, and put them fleas all over your ass. Fauci has been a controversial figure during the pandemic, in part because of his public clashes with President Trump over Fauci's support for masks and opposition to unproven COVID cures. But a surge of harassment and threats in recent weeks has forced staff at his agency to spend significantly time debunking misinformation and grappling with security concerns. According to 3 of the NIH officials and 4 senior administration officials who, like some others interviewed for the story, spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters. Dude, we saw the documents tying him together with this. You can't come out and say that he had nothing to do with this when the documents have been released. It's just a right-wing conspiracy theory. It has nothing to do with him. He didn't do any of this. But they're trying. Oh God, are they trying? Well, he's a saint after all. From Telegraph Global Health Security. Could the crackdown on the unvaccinated spark an anti-vax backlash? Harriet M. Barber reports. Let's listen.
Across the world, a new crackdown is gaining pace, a crackdown on the rights and freedoms of what in the developed world is a minority, the unvaccinated.
Singapore has withdrawn free healthcare, while in Queensland, Australia, those without jabs face difficulties finding work. And this week, Austria locked down some 2 million unvaccinated adults and children in a bid to control the virus. They get fined if they leave their homes for a non-essential reason. The crackdown is taking place against a backdrop.
Your papers, please! Especially in Austria. Holy shit. You can't make this shit up. Yes, yeah. Do you have your papers? Are you hiding the unvaccinated? Are they in the attic? Are you hiding them in the basement? Where are your papers? Give me your papers!
Of countries dropping universal restrictions and trying to return to normal. And most aren't objecting because the unvaxxed are in a minority.
But is it fair, and might it result in a backlash?
Experts fear that such measures could fuel the anti-vax movement for years to come.
For the full story, read the article in the bio. Across
She's cute. I'm not gonna lie. But on to the meat of the story before I get excited and have to turn the webcam off for you guys. Just on the meat of the story, first and foremost, the vast majority of these people that are being talked about in this are vaccinated. They have their polio, their measles, their mumps, probably the bubonic plague. I'm sure there's a vaccine out there for that. They've got the MMR. They've got all these other vaccines in and of themselves. They're not unvaccinated. They just choose not to take this one that just came out last year. Most of them are in great favor of all the other vaccines. They just don't know enough about this one to make an informed decision off of it. This whole anti-vax thing, I know why they're doing it. It's so fucking stupid. I'm not anti-vaccine. I just choose not to take this particular one. There are religious reasons for it. There are health reasons for it. And there are freedom reasons for it. I got the MMR. I don't get a flu shot either, so that's on top of it. I got the MMR. I got that on my own volition, on my own choice. I've had my polio, the smallpox, the stuff when I was a kid. I've had all those shots. But that's what they're going to try and tell you. All right. From CBS, Gottlieb says that at some point COVID-19 vaccines could be considered a 3-dose vaccine. From Kimani Hayes. When are you getting your 75th booster? Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said Sunday on Face the Nation that he thinks that at some point Americans who received the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines would be considered fully vaccinated against the pinko fucking pox after 3 doses, although likely not this year. I think eventually this will be considered the 3-dose vaccine, but I would be hard-pressed to believe the CDC is going to make that recommendation anytime soon, said Gottlieb. Yeah, MMR is a 3-dose. They did MMR and they did Hep B. I have the Hep B one too, by the way. He said the CDC is currently sort of stuttering on making that recommendation because of the debate in the public health community about whether younger people who are at lower risk level to get the COVID should get a 3rd dose. In states like Connecticut and New Mexico, governors have already stepped out ahead of the CDC and said 3 shots are needed for individuals to consider themselves fully vaccinated. Yeah, I don't care what the governor has to say about that. The CDC on Friday expanded eligibility for booster shots for all Americans over the age of 18. Gottlieb also said some businesses may soon enforce the rule that a 3rd dose of the pinko fucking pox jab for its employees or patrons to be considered fully vaccinated. I think in cases where entities are going to mandate 3 doses for people who are 6 months out from the 2nd dose, they're going to do that, or they're doing that because they're using the vaccine as a way to control transmissions and end this pandemic, Gottlieb said. No, they're using this vaccine as a way to control people. Yeah, you're almost ahead, but you chose not to get the vaccine. Oh, you were almost there. You almost had it. You were almost there. Fuck. On Thursday, the Labor Department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration said it was suspending enforcement of the admin rule that ordered businesses with more than 100 employees to either require their workers to get vaccinated or undergo weekly testing. See? You have a choice. You can just get tested every week. I'm so tired of it. I'm so fucking tired of it all. I'm telling you right now. I'm so tired. From the Hill. 3 female senators called New York Times, a former newspaper, coverage of cinema's close sexist. From Jordan Kearney. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Jeannie Shaheen on Friday, go away, criticized the New York Times for a string of pieces related to how fellow Senator Kyrsten Sinema dresses. The 3 female senators pointed out to 4 stories that recently published by the Times, 1 style section piece published last month, and 3 opinion section pieces in the past 3 weeks from one writer, saying they cannot imagine the Times printing similar pieces of the fashion choices of any of our male colleagues. Sinema is a serious, hardworking member of the Senate who contributes a great deal to the policy deliberations before us. Your repeated focus on how she dresses rather than what she says or does is demeaning, sexist, and inappropriate, the senators wrote in a letter to the editor published on Friday. Asked about the criticism from the senators, Danielle Rhodes, a spokeswoman for the Times, said the aim of our opinion coverage is to invite intelligent discussion from informed people with a diversity of opinions and ideas. We believe in open debate and always welcome reactions, such as the senator's letter to the editor. Sinema acknowledged the op-ed in a tweet, added, "Work hard, be yourself." Yes, this is intelligent, informed discussion. Oh my God, Becky, did you see her dress? Did you see her dress? Look how colorful it is. Oh my God. Oh, she's so brave to wear that bright color. Look at those thighs are getting a little bit thicker. Oh my God. Look at her. Look at her. She's so brave out here with this. She comes up here in the little jumper and puts her thumb down. Oh my God. Look at her. Yes, that is your intelligent discussion. From CNN. A passenger's weapon accidentally discharged at the Atlanta airport, causing panic and halting flights. From Deccan at Doan, Keith Allen, and David Williams. So I have questions. An accidental discharge of a passenger's weapon in the security area of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport caused widespread panic on Saturday afternoon, prompting a brief halt of departing flights over the busy travel weekend. The incident occurred around 1:30 p.m. when a prohibited item was detected at a passenger's property. While going through the X-ray screening at the security checkpoint, Robert Spinden, the Transportation Secretary Administration, Federal Security Director of Georgia, said in a news conference the property was flagged for a secondary search, he said. During that secondary search, the passenger lunged into his property, grabbing a firearm that was located inside, which ultimately discharged, Spinden said. The passenger then fled the security checkpoint through an adjacent exit lane with his firearm. We're fortunate that when the firearm went off, nobody was seriously injured, Spinden said. Yeah, I mean, I've never been to the Atlanta airport, and I probably never will, because until they get rid of the stupid fucking mask. I mean, I can handle the TSA because I control the fuck out of those people, but until they get rid of the stupid TSA mask vaccine, whatever the fuck they're going to do, you're not going to catch my ass on an airplane. I'm telling you that right now. But with that being said, I know how crowded it is at the security checkpoint at O'Hare, which Atlanta is supposedly busier than that. If you manage to have that thing go off and not hit anybody, in an airport that's supposedly, I'm sorry, not O'Hare, Midway, which Atlanta is definitely busier than Midway. I've been to O'Hare too, but that's been a really, really long time ago. But yeah, I mean, just the crowds in Midway. If something were to actually accidentally go off and not hit somebody, that is a miracle in and of itself. That is a straight up, outright miracle in and of itself, that it didn't either hit anybody or nobody got trampled or died because of it. And you fucking moron, for having your gun in your carry-on, you dumb fuck. Three people suffered non-life-threatening injuries, the TSA said in a statement. Atlanta police had previously said no injuries were reported. According to a source familiar with the situation, the injured were not shot but instead hurt during the evacuation. All of the injured were adults, the source said. The two were transported to the hospital. The discharged round went into the property of the person who brought the weapon. The individual whose weapon was discharged was identified as 42-year-old Kenny Wells, according to the Atlanta Police Department's Airport Precinct Commander, Reginald L. Moorman. Okay, and that's the other thing, too, because, like I said, I will go to other states. I absolutely will. But I will drive. I will go across the country, but I will drive. And a part of the reason for going across the country but driving is because I can take my armament with me through most states that I will drive through. As it is, I can take my armament there. But even if I did, because, when I went to Arizona, brought armaments with me then. Stowed. Under the belly of the plane. Far, far away from anybody else. Unloaded, of course. That's the other question. Why the fuck was this thing loaded? If it's in your carry-on, you dumb. Now, no, not with a plane, not with a pressurized plane. I would say you're pretty fucking stupid for even considering bringing a loaded weapon onto carry-on, onto a plane. Because even if you do have to defend yourself for whatever reason, you're likely going to depressurize the plane to do so. And you'll die in the crash, rather than whatever terrorist attempt you think is going to happen. Dumb shit. But even then, when I carried mine, unloaded, in the stowed luggage underneath the plane, far, far away from me, because that's just intelligent. From 10 WBNS out of Columbus. New CDL requirements could impact trucking industry, but not Ohio school bus drivers. From Olivia Ugino, From WBNS. Staffing shortages for school buses were a problem nationwide. Westerville City Schools ran into issues on Tuesday with several drivers calling off. But could these problems be worse when new requirements will soon go into effect for getting a proper license to drive one of these buses? Starting February 7th, getting a CDL will take an extra layer. The FMCA, those people, will require drivers to take a course with a registered instructor and require the driver to perform certain skills before they can take their CDL test. So you have to take a test before you take your CDL test. Got it. The schools were very nervous that this was going to cause them an extra layer of training, said Doug Palmer, transportation consultant, Ohio School Boards Association. Luckily for Ohio school districts, the current training for bus drivers already covers the new requirements. What's going to impact the schools is how that gets reported at the federal level. It's going to be an administrative submission of how they acquired the training, said Palmer. But this is different for other states. The Ohio School Boards Association says training a bus driver in Ohio costs about $5,000, compared to about $2,500 to $3,500 in other states. So, you've got supply chain issues. People are looking at getting into the supply chain to go help out getting a CDL, which I've already got one, but people are looking to get into the situation, to get into this, and the government's going to make it harder. And cost a bunch more money. We have some of the lowest insurance rates. We have some of the lowest loss rates for like accidents, said Palmer. These new requirements will also apply to truckers. The Ohio Trucking Association says this is creating a standard across the board, which they say is beneficial but can be costly. CDL schools and the programs usually run between 6 and 8 weeks, and then they cost anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000, said Tom Balzer, Ohio Trucking Association president and CEO. Currently, the American Trucking Association says it's down about 80,000 drivers across the country. I do not believe the training itself will exacerbate the shortage, but it will lengthen the time and the challenges that it takes to be able to get a CDL to work through that process, says Balzer. Of course, the FMCA is going to come in here and do shit like this. From Politico. Thank you for the follow, Ted Tubin. From Politico, allegations of bigotry and calls for impeachment rock college Democrats. From Alex Thompson, the kids are not all right. The College Democrats of America, the Democrat Party's national organization presiding over 500 chapters on campuses across the country, is in turmoil. The group's leaders are publicly firing off accusations of anti-blackness, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism at each other. Impeachment proceedings are now in the works against the organization's new vice president, Nurhan Mesbah, who is Muslim. College Democrats say the screenshot of tweets that their peers sent in adolescence spread rapidly through group texts, which already caused a student running for president of the group to withdraw their candidacy in September. And national advocacy groups for Muslim and Jewish Americans are now weighing in with criticism. The conflict has gotten so messy that Democrat National Committee is considering disaffiliating with the National Collegiate Organization altogether and creating partnership with the state groups underneath the national umbrella, according to Democrats familiar with the discussions. The DNC declined to comment. I might have a visual representation of that. Here's a visual representation of what that looks like on these college campuses. And dude, I'm going to tell you right now, I can tell you without a doubt, I was a Democrat for a long time. I hung around with a lot of very progressive Democrats. I was a more Union Democrat type, not a progressive. I've never fallen to the progressive ways, but I've been very, very, very Union Democrat friendly for a long time in my life. But one thing that I can tell you from my experience being around these progressives especially, is that there's no more racist people than progressive Democrats. You know, the joke, which I'm not going to give the punchline to, but I'm sure you've all heard it. How do you fit 44 Jews in a Volkswagen? I heard that from one of the most progressive people I've ever met in my life. A guy that I used to work with at a grocery store. The most top of the line progressive, every progressive cause you could possibly get to, is the one who told me that joke the first time. The first time I ever heard it. Dude, progressives are insane. And it's not just the veiled racism. Oh, well, we have to give the handout to the black community because they can't do it for themselves. It's not that veiled racism. It is outright racism. They just do it in the company of other progressives or people they perceive to be progressive. They don't do it when they go to the BLM rally. But that's what we have off of that. Yeah, no, I'm not going to give the punchline to that one, Quest, for very obvious reasons. We're going to stay away from that one. All right, 2 more. What race is Ernie? Is Bert? Conservative Matt Schlapp calls for federal government to stop funding PBS after Sesame Street announced the show's first Asian American character. From Sam Baker from Mail Online. Dude, it's a puppet. It's a puppet. The chairman of the American Conservatives Union has called for federal funding to be pulled from Sesame Street after the indoctrination of the show's latest character. I'm sorry, not indoctrination, introduction. Sesame Street unveiled its brand new character, Ji Young, the show's first ever Asian American character, earlier this week. However, Matt Schlapp has called for the federal government to pull its funding from the channel PBS, which is home to the children's show. Taking to Twitter earlier this week, Schlapp wrote, "What race is Ernie? Is Bert? You're insane, PBS, and we should stop funding you." In 2019, the Federalist reported that Sesame Street now relies on around $5 million of federal government grants each year. That represents a significantly lower proportion than that which it used to rely on when it first started out in 1966. Many characters on the show, such as Cookie Monster, Elmo, and Big Bird, are non-human creatures. However, other characters, such as Wesley Walker, his dad Elijah, who debuted on the show earlier this year, are black puppets and have an ethnicity. Are you fucking kidding me? Why? Why have we come this far? And the show has a history of introducing characters in a bit to educate children about inclusivity. These have included such characters as Roosevelt Franklin in 1970, which was the first ever black Muppet. She doesn't look Asian. She just has the name. And in 2002, the show created a character known as Kami, who was HIV. What? And who appeared on the South African Takalani Sesame to educate children and reduce the stigma surrounding HIV/AIDS. Well, as recently as 2015, a character named Julia was introduced who had autism. She was initially included in a digital storybook before appearing on the show in 2017. Ji Young will be formally introduced in See Us Coming Together, a Sesame Street special. Simu Liu, Padma Lakshmi, and Naomi Osaka are among the celebrities appearing in the special. I don't know who any of those people are. Which will air on Thanksgiving Day on HBO Max, Sesame Street social media platforms, and on the local PBS stations. Yeah, I was surprised that Sesame Street's still getting millions of dollars from the US government. I thought that they were fully funded by HBO at this point. But apparently not. I have no idea. I never, ever entertained the thought that Bert and Ernie were human, either. Elmo, Zoe, Cookie Monster. They were all monsters, like was said in the chat. Yeah, Beam Me Up Scott says they're monsters. Yeah, they were all monsters. Big Bird was obviously a giant fucking bird. A perpetually 6-year-old giant fucking bird. Snuffleupagus. Oscar. Why are the puppets human now? I don't know. Alright. And the last one that was just breaking this morning, and any other circumstances would have been the top of the show, but we had to cover Wisconsin stuff. From NBC Bay Area, thieves steal items from Louis Vuitton store in San Francisco's Union Square. From NBC Bay Area staff and Bay City News. But they're not rolling on Bay City News. Police officers in San Francisco responded to the city's Union Square Friday evening following reports of thefts and vandalism at retail stores, according to a city police spokesperson. Police officer Robert Rudka said that Friday evening that the report came in at approximately 8:10 p.m., and officers arrived on the scene to a retail store in Union Square, which they observed several suspects involved in criminal acts. In one video posted to Twitter, it shows San Francisco police officers chasing several people and surrounding a car as they started smashing the car windows. Another video shows thieves running from the Louis Vuitton store. I don't see what thieves were running from the Louis Vuitton store. Police have arrested multiple suspects, Royka added, continuing that officers are responding to reports of other retail establishments where vandalism has occurred Friday evening. Additional officers are responding to the Union Square area. So, my question there, of course. The original article that I found for this, which was not green check verified, but I did want to go back and double check on, showed and stated that it was 80 people that robbed a high-end store in San Francisco and stole a bunch of merchandise and was menacing patrons and employees in the store. But, of course, the first thing we have to remember is when we look at this, if there were 80 people and they stole $79,999 worth of merchandise, then they can't be persecuted. Hey, San Francisco, your rules, not mine. Speaking of which, let's do rule of acquisition and head out of here for the day. We are past 10, which means that we are streaming. Have been streaming for 2.5 hours. Not the longest episode of Contemporary, but we are close. So last week, we looked at the fact that war is good for business. From DS9 episode Destiny and the 34th rule from the DS9 novel. Today we look at the 35th rule of acquisition. Peace is good for business. And peace is definitely good for business. War is good for business once you start going in weapons deals, big investments over here, people coming in to try to get into the war effort, and all the people that are coming in to try to buy and support everything that goes on. Everyone who wants to be patriotic and support the cause. We saw this with 9/11. And going into the Middle East, even though we never should have. But peace is also good for business. You come home. Everybody's relieved over the fact that the war is gone. You're bringing your combat pay home for the first time sometimes. Some soldiers are coming over to spend their combat pay for the first time. And they're out. They don't have to worry. They don't have to worry that they'll get bombed in the market. They don't have to worry that they'll be in the bar and somebody will come in from a foreign government and start shooting. Or somebody from the domestic government will come in and start shooting. You don't have to worry about a gang war or something else happening in here. Peace is very good for business. So, and those two kind of run in tandem with each other. War is good for business. Peace is good for business. A lot of stuff is good for business. You just have to learn how it is that you operate it and how it is that you utilize what it is that you're given. If you just come in and say, I can't earn a profit, I can't do anything, I don't have any marketable skills, you're probably right. But if you have the attitude, look in and find whatever marketable skill that you have, then you will soon figure out that all things are good for business. And that's it. We're done. So let's change up the track and let's head out of here for the day. So, well, let's change this up too. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat with us, who came back and talked about everything that went here. Apologize for the DLive not being connected. That is not on my end, that is on DLive's end. But thank you for the thoughtful conversation that was going in on the DLive side as well. We'll be back here tomorrow with more contemporary, and later on tonight with the Red Ned Show featuring Seawall because, well, jury duty got called off for a week, so I don't have to go back into that until next week. So otherwise, come back and enjoy. We'll be back here later on tonight, or join us here tomorrow, same time, for more contemporary. We won't go this late, but same start time as well for more contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.